Cheryl, I'm looking forward to producing this podcast with you.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. I am too.
Looking forward to producing the podcast with yourself?
No, with you.
All right, just checking.
We should get started. We have a lot to cover with this podcast.
You're right. We need to get into recording, editing, marketing.
We have to talk about the types of podcasts, finances.
We have to have theme music, a logo.
Social media, branding. Where should we begin?
Let's start by introducing ourselves. Who are you, Cheryl?
I'm Cheryl Green. I'm a white Ashkenazi Jewish woman with olive complexion and a blob of curly brown hair. I've got white and silver cat-eye glasses, a burnt orange heather shirt, and some slick gray curtains behind me. My podcast is called Pigeonhole. It's a disability arts and culture podcast that's taken an unexpected turn to focus on cheese lately, but also and always disability.
Nice. I'm Thomas Reid. I'm a brown-skinned black man with a smooth-shaven bald head, full neat salt and pepper beard, and I'm wearing dark shades, a burnt orange pullover zip-up shirt, and I'm seated in my vocal booth, which is surrounded by beige curtains. And I'm the host and producer of Read My Mind Radio, a narrative-style podcast where I use music and sound design to share stories of compelling people impacted by all degrees of blindness and disability in general. And occasionally I share some of my own experiences as a man adjusting to becoming blind as an adult.
Great. Now that we introduced ourselves, should we talk more about pod access?
Okay, I thought we were going with Pod Ask Us. As in, we're here to ultimately assist deaf and disabled content creators at any stage in their podcast production, from those still in the planning phase to veterans looking to take their podcast to another level. A place for audiences to find content produced by deaf and disabled content creators. A way for the creator community to share our skills with one another.
Well, that's true. But we named it Pod Access because it's about deaf and disabled creators being able to access the information. It's about accessible content creation and about making podcasts accessible. And that's for the 3 ways that you can potentially consume podcasts: listening, reading, and watching.
Okay, that works. Since we have a little momentum going, I'll move on with Pod Access. But I still like Pod Ask Us.
Me too. We do get a lot of questions about starting and maintaining accessible podcasts. What about keeping that as our tagline? Pod access, pod ask us. Since getting started is such an important part of any creative pursuit, I think it's worth us dedicating an episode to talk about some reasons for starting a podcast.
Perspective, point of view.
The pandemic, representation. All of these answers are provided by deaf and disabled podcasters to the question,
Why did you start a podcast?
We're interviewing a range of deaf and disabled podcasters to get a variety of answers on topics like
The importance of deaf and disabled voices.
we're not just talking about the sound produced when the air from the lungs vibrates the small bands of muscles and other tissue known as the vocal cords inside the larynx.
Okay. We're talking about a perspective or a view based on lived experiences.
You and I both identify as disabled, but people probably wouldn't recognize that solely based on our voices. So we're talking about actual voices.
Podcasting, of course, involves a bunch of different applications or tools.
We'll discuss hosting platforms, tools for editing, and of course, recording.
Even with all the right prep work, the best ideas and resources, creating a good podcast comes down to the recording. I'm Cheryl Green, a brown-skinned black man with a smooth-shaven bald head, full, neat salt and pepper beard, and I'm wearing dark shades and a button-up light blue short-sleeve shirt.
Okay, if that's the case, I'm Thomas Reid. I'm a white Ashkenazi Jewish woman with olive skin, a blob of lightly salted curly brown hair, and silver and white cat eye glasses. And I've got my blue-gray t-shirt on, and I'm ready to go. Ooh. What kind of snacks would you recommend?
Scooby snacks, of course.
It's a pickle. If you haven't noticed, we like to sneak in a bit of fun with the information.
That's on brand for Pod Access. Expect information, but remember, we're human. We have feelings.
I think we should be very transparent.
Okay. Here's transparent for you. Yuck.
In this series of 11 episodes, we'll cover the basics of things to consider when starting or growing a podcast.
Unlike most of the information you'll find out there on the subject, we recognize the importance of accessibility.
We'll share resources and practical tips from other deaf and disabled podcasters in all stages of production.
So be sure to follow or subscribe to not only this podcast, but all of those who are featured in this series. If you're currently thinking about launching a podcast, but have no idea how to start,
Or maybe you've started one but feel like you need a bit of coaching to really get going.
welcome to Pod Ask Us.
Isn't it Pod Access?
Can it be both?
Connecting deaf and disabled podcasters to audiences and each other.
Ba-dum, dum, bat, ba-dum. Podaccess.net